What's up, y'all? Welcome back. Welcome back. Today, I'm here with some nonfiction Black history book reviews. Let's get it. Favorite reader, that's who you are. Traveling near, traveling far. Through every chapter, you're the star. Favorite reader, that's who you are. Okay, I'm excited for this video. Where do I start? First of all, let me start with a couple of disclaimers. With these books that I'm about to go over, there's a lot of overlap. I mean, they all deal with Black history. It's literal history. So inevitably there is some overlap. But a couple of things to keep in mind when you read nonfiction books, because I've been seeing a lot of people make comments like non-fiction books can't be critiqued, can't be like disputed, that you have to agree with every single thing in a non-fiction book because it's objective or like it's just inherent truth. And everything is written from some sort of bias. I feel like most people know that, but when it supports what your bias is, people tend to forget. So I will say, when reading any nonfiction book, yes, it's nonfiction, but that does not mean that it isn't written with a worldview in mind, that it isn't written by someone that's flawed, someone that has their own biases. And just take that for what it is. There's a lot of information in these books that I'm going to cover that are good. It's good information, stuff that I didn't know, stuff that caused me to research on my own, stuff I already knew, and it just kind of expanded upon it. Just wanted to say that because I don't always read, like, it's not really related totally to these books, but I realized while reading these books and talking to people that I just think it's a common misconception that I just kind of wanted to throw out there. But these are books that I recently read, well, recently within the past like month or so, that I wanted to share because what better time? Okay. Now, let's see. I'm going to, okay, so the way I'm going to organize this, hold on, I probably should do this before the video. The way I'm going to organize it, there are 4 books that I literally recently read, like over the past month that I said. But then I also have 5 books here that were referenced in these 4 books that I've previously read, that I kind of went back through and reread certain passages of. So I will be going over those 4 books that I recently read. And then the other 5 books I will mention that were included, referenced, discussed, talked about, highlighted in these books that caused me to pull them off the shelf, open it up, and kind of refresh my memory on some things. Okay, I'm going to go over these in the order that I read them. So some of these have bite-sized bits of information, just pieces here and there to give you a kind of overview. And some of these are super in-depth. Okay, now that that's all out the way, let's get started. The first book that I want to discuss is The 1619 Project. And that's created and edited by Nicole Hannah Jones. This is one of the ones where I mentioned is in depth. This one is so comprehensive in a lot of ways. It sparked me rereading quite a bit of these books that I'm going to talk about earlier. It mentioned quite a bit of the books that I'm going to talk about earlier, and even some books that I've read but I don't actually own. The whole premise of this book is to make it clear that slavery was not this like stain or mistake that the founding fathers tolerated, but it really was an integral part of building the United States of America. And it just talks about how it was weaved into every aspect of this country, like weaved into the fabric of what made America what it is today. And it caused me to think about so much. So much. So much. This was a great book. And this was gifted by Elaine. She actually, out of this list, she gifted me 3. So this one and then 2 other ones I'm going to talk about. But this was just, it was so good. Like, it's stuff in here that I didn't know about, people I never heard of. And what, not only is it super, 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 super rich in history, is like, the book is so creative in its composition. Like, it has a preface by the author, but there's essays in here and poetry pieces in here and so many different authors that I've read from before that I enjoy, that I like, and being able to get their perspectives. Like, people I wasn't expecting to see in here. Like, Terry McMillan has a piece in here. And so many other names you will recognize while reading this. Like, I just like the way that it was written. And then there's like, each section has a historical fact or something that happened, whether it's like related to the laws, the Constitution, some kind of major event in history, or major or minor event in history. And then the reflection, whether that's an essay, poem, entry, whatever, directly correlates to that thing. This book made me think about, like, the first thing that really stood out to me about this book is not only does it highlight like the cotton crops, which we already know, there's plenty of other crops. Of course, we know it, but I didn't think about it as in depth as I probably could have. Like, it was talking about the sugarcane crops that I didn't think about in as much detail, and this really highlighted it. Like, yes, it's talking about slavery in America, but yeah, also the Caribbean and stuff like that. So just so much to think about. I mean, body autonomy and identity. And again, these are things that's going to be present throughout all of these books, but finding your place in a world that seeks to erase you, and just even thinking about the presidents and what their contribution was and their lack of action in a lot of ways. Thinking about how Constitution, like how amendments were written and how laws were written and what was done in this double standard and how the law isn't equally applied across the board. Just so much. And quite a bit of this stuff, like, you already know, but the way that it's packaged in this book, I enjoy this. This is one of those books that I will reference probably a lot, especially like when teaching my kids. This is something like you can pull out a section of this or historical event that they mention in this book. You could pull that out and create an entire curriculum and study about it. Like, it's so much. I know I'll be referencing this a lot. So excited. This was so good. Like, beyond good. Beyond good. This didn't only talk about Black people of African descent. It also talked about the Native people. It talked about their contribution and how America did what they did. We already know what they did, but it kind of went into more depth about what that looked like, how they were stolen from, abused, taken advantage of, oppressed, all of that stuff. That was included in here too. This book talked a lot about life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and what that hypocrisy looks like in America. Like, again, how it's not evenly distributed across all citizens. And even like in the beginning where there was this push after like they were scared that Black people who were recently free would rise up and fight back in a lot of ways, how there was this push to send them to different countries. And what that looked like, just so much self-actualization, like the history of U.S. citizenship, the making of the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, convict leasing. It had a part in here about convict leasing, which I thought was really interesting. It caused me to read a few articles. And then it had sections in the book, which I really liked. So there was sections on citizenship, and it had, like I said, the entries, the essays, poetry, whatever selections on citizenship. It also had music and religion and politics and justice, and it was so comprehensive in so many ways. Like, I thoroughly enjoyed this. Hard to read at times. It was dense, but it wasn't as dense as it could have been. Like, this could have been written in way more of a like textbook kind of fashion. This was so approachable in a way that it was edited, in a way that it was like created and crafted, which I really appreciated. And really, while I was reading this, I just kept thinking how like people want you to think so much is coincidental, but it's so intentional. Like, it's so intentional, the way that systems were set up, the way that things happen, the way that the world we live in now, the foundation of that was very intentional to get us to the spot that we at. Like, little things that we just take it for face value, they have an origin. And the origin 9 times out of 10 is not pretty, but it's intentional. It's not just like the stuff is happenstance. And that's kind of what I kept thinking about as I was reading this. I mean, even stuff like road infrastructure. Like, it's intentional. It's intentional, and I always remember that. Yeah, overall, before I move on to the next book, I loved how this book brought in so many different authors and voices to form this collective that's so rich in history. So many things I appreciate in this. Things that will, just like all of these books I'm gonna mention, they evoke so many emotions. They make you mad, they make you frustrated and angry, but they also give you this deep appreciation for just history and what it was and what people had to endure and how we got here today and why that's important. So, great book. Oh my goodness. If you're thinking about reading this, get it, read it. And this is one you can read it straight through. Like, I took time to read it straight through, but you can also just take your time and pick certain sections out. Like I said, this is a book that I'll be referencing a lot. So that's book one. Oh, it's so good, y'all. Okay, so reading that book, my initial plan was thwarted because I planned to read that and then jump into something else. But reading that made me pick up this book, American Presidential Parties, Their Relevance to People of African Descent by C. Nicole. The reason that I picked this up is because there was a lot of references in the 1619 Project to what presidents did, their policies, laws that they passed, sometimes their inaction. And I knew I had this. This was sent to me by the publisher, so I just wanted to jump in and see what it was about. Where this was comprehensive, in depth. It gave you so much to think about, so much to chew on. This one is more bite sized, so I hope y'all can see that. This is a more bite-sized view of literally the presidents of the United States of America. It stops at 45 Trump, and it goes through bite-size what this president's relationship was to people of African descent. Like, what policies did they pass, what they personally did, ways that they spoke up and spoke out about certain things, ways that they didn't, hypocrisy, contradictions, what they said versus what they did, what they promised versus what they actually followed through with, laws that were passed. And this, like I said, is bite size, but I do feel like I haven't read a book like this before where solely focused on that. But I found this really helpful. I was appreciative to read through and see what they did, like starting back to the first president, like what was going on here. And what I kept seeing over and over and over and over, which I expected, because I feel like I've been alive enough decades to be able to expect this. It was a whole bunch of contradiction. A whole bunch. You say you don't support slavery, yet you still like upholding things that keep slavery going. You say you don't support slavery, but you own a slave. You say that you are anti-discrimination, yet everything that you pass somehow supports the same discrimination that you say you're against. You say, I'm going to do X, Y, Z so that I can get your vote. But when it comes time to do it, It's crickets. Good bite-sized information. And I knew some of this. This book, I knew some of what some presidents did. I knew some of the contradictions. I knew some of it, but I didn't know a lot about mostly the earlier presidents. And there's stuff I really didn't know about Trump and Obama and George Bush and stuff too. So very interesting. If you're looking for a bite-sized reference, again, just like that book, The 1619 Project, you can read this. Just flip to the president that you're looking for and use it as a reference if you want to, or you can read it all the way through. That's the beauty of history-related books. Okay. So after that, I ended up reading the next two books are from Elaine. Thank you, girl. The next book that I read is Master, Slave, Husband, Wife by Ilyon Wu. Hope it's coming through. I got a confession about this. When I first heard of this book and I kind of read the synopsis and I was interested in it, I actually thought this was a historical fiction book. I truly did. I thought it was historical fiction, and I started reading it. And I was like, wait a minute. This is real life. This is actual nonfiction. This is actual history. And I had to start back over because I was like, wait, I've been reading this whole time. Like, wow, what a creative concept for the author. Like, no, this really legit happened. Opened my eyes to something I never heard of. I never heard of the Craft couple before reading this. You got Ellen and William Craft, who in 1848 fled from slavery in the South. They fled, and the way that they fled is the wife, who was very, very fair-skinned, passed for a white man who was supposed to be the master of her husband, the black man. Okay, it was a journey. First, they journey from south to the north, and then they journey where they join like an emancipation ring, an abolitionist ring, I should say. And then they were speaking, telling a story, sharing a story, inspiring, giving hope. And then the story, it left the U.S. And then you got to see that. You just got to see their journey after they actually emancipated themselves, what their life looked like. I was so like, wow, like they did that. And then not only did they do it, they then stood up as a symbol for other people. They sparked hope and joy. And when you got to think about the family dynamics of Ellen Craft and the family that enslaved her, that's a whole story in and of itself. And then William Craft, and you got to think about what they had to offer the world and just how brave and inspiring their story was. And then it transports you back into 1848, and you think about just how relevant this is nowadays. I'm going to also try to show you a flip through here. You think about how relevant it is nowadays. And I was just like, I feel the same way when I read Black history. I keep saying this, where you feel all the emotions. Like you're happy when they succeed at something and they overcome something and they resist something and they conquer something. But you also feel every negative emotion too while reading it, because you like, this is just so evil. Like, so glad I read this. And I was sharing, as I was reading it, I was sharing stuff I was reading with my husband and my kids, because I was just like, girl, this is good. Very, very good. I also see the author has a couple of other books. The author of The Great Divorce, a 19th century mother's extraordinary fight against her husband, The Shakers in Her Times. I'm going to check that out. But yeah, so good, y'all. So good. Okay, then next I read also a gift from Elaine. This book right here, again, a lot of overlap because it's Black history. But not only is this Black history, this is Black history / memoir. So like both, but still. That is When Trees Testify: Science, Wisdom, History, and America's Black Botanical Legacy by Veranda L. Montgomery. Still can't get over how gorgeous this cover is. Oh my goodness. Okay, so in this book, I'm gonna kind of put some footage here of my garden because we are gardeners, and somebody asked, could I insert footage? So I'm just show y'all what our backyard looks like. But anyways, this book explores the way that 7 trees and the cotton shrub are intertwined with Black history and culture. The author goes over pecan trees, sycamore trees, willow trees, poplar trees, mulberry trees, oak trees, the cotton shrub, and some apple tree varieties. Out of all of those, we only have apple trees in our backyard because we don't have space for the other ones. We do have other trees, but no other ones that were mentioned in this book. Anyways, it was so good. Not only did I directly relate to how the author said that she connects with nature and trees and plants, but I felt deeply like the history that was intertwined in it, from her childhood and her personal history to Black history, period, in America. And I'll tell you this: when we first grafted, actually my husband did this, but when he first grafted like some apple trees to another apple tree, the way I was like, and this is the first time I had seen this at this time when he did it, and I was like, man, I feel like it was just like, wow, they connected and they remember and they grow and it's just cool. And then we had rabbits that like destroyed some of the bark and the weight like of the tree. And I thought the tree was gonna die. He also thought that this tree was gonna die. And the way that the tree healed itself, it was like how you would think a human's body would heal itself. It was scarred, and it seemed like how you would think about your own body. The flesh was exposed, the inside bark was exposed, and then it scabbed over. It kind of scabbed over, and it like grew out shoots around it to protect itself again from if rabbits came. We also put a barrier around it after we realized the rabbits were doing that. But just to think the way that our body heals itself and defends against outside attacks, trees do that. And you got to see it, and then you feel it, and it's a little wet where we would have blood. It was like a little sap or something. And it just healed over, clotted, like, and healed itself throughout shoots. And it's so cool. And me and my husband talk about this a lot, just how much gardening has so many life lessons in it. Like, so many. I mean, it teaches wisdom, patience, what you name it, like giving and receiving and taking care of something and seeing the full life cycle of something develop. And it's just protecting something and seeing how stuff protects itself and just the circle of life, Mother Nature. So it's so cool. Anyways, let me get back to the book because I'm getting distracted about the plants. But like I said, this is also a memoir where it talks about the author's life and her upbringing and history. And something that I really loved in this book that I never thought about was when we speak to people, when we come into a room, how that has roots where people were keeping track of who last seen kids. So when people were, running and scared and fighting for their life and being attacked and hunted down, there was a trail of where the people's kids were. Like, oh, she spoke to me and she passed. Like, I'm the last one that saw her. You can kind of see the pathway that the kids took. And I just never thought of that. I never thought of that. Yeah. And then another thing I thought about, I too get like an overwhelming sense of I get overly emotional when I go to like historical grounds and I see these big trees, and I just think like, yeah, they don't have eyes, but what these trees experience too, and what stories would they tell if they could testify? When they testify, like, what would we see? What do we know? What did that look like? They still standing. Like, And then a part of this, again, just like I mentioned, you're going to get frustrated because you think people are so hateful that they will burn down a tree that has some symbolic representation for a tragic event and was planted as like in remembrance. Somebody would burn that down just out of pure hate. Ugh, anyways, so much wisdom. I really, really, really like this book. Really, really like this book. Made me think about my childhood when she was talking about the pecan trees and what recipes like the pecans was in. And you think about the summer with the ice cream and the pecan pies in the winter. And you think about all this stuff. It's just so good. Climbing trees and playing in trees and hiding behind trees. And then you think about why you have fond memories involving trees that have been here long before you, how they might have a different, how they might mean something different to older people that have totally different relationships to those trees than you might. That might have been a tree that they couldn't pass for whatever reason. That might have been a tree that they saw somebody get killed at. That might have been a tree, who knows? You know what I mean? So, this was good. I love books like this. This is good. Okay, so these are the 4 books that I said I recently read, but now I'm going to go over the books that were referenced in these books that I kind of pulled back up. Okay, so first in the 1619 project, the first book that was mentioned, and I happen to have it on my shelf, the author said that this book opened up her eyes to what the year 1619 meant and gave her like this desire to want to know more, almost like this hunger to want to know more. And that is The Mayflower, A History of the Negro in America, 1619 through 1964 by LaRon Bennett Jr. I have the revised edition. Yeah, so yeah, that's the first book. The next one, The Price for Their Pound of Flesh, The Value of the Enslaved from Womb to Grave in the Building of a Nation by Dana Ramey Berry. I actually have a review on my channel of this book. This was mentioned, made me want to flip through and read some more, read back over some things that I read before. This book really talks about the value of the enslaved, what their bodies were worth when they were alive, and even post-mortem, how they weren't able to rest ever, like not even in death, just never, never. The value of childbearing women versus like field working men. So yeah, a lot in this book. Then we have The Souls of Black Folks by W.E.B. Du Bois. I feel like everybody knows what this is, but this was mentioned in the 1619 project as well. So it made me want to flip back through. I'll probably, this talks about the race problem and double consciousness. I'll probably do a reread of this either this year or next year because I've been wanting to reread it. Okay, and then we have The Narrative of the Life of Frederick Douglass, an American Slave. This talks about how Frederick Douglass learned. First of all, it's about his life, but it talks about how he learned to read and write despite being enslaved and what those challenges were. I feel like a lot of books reference this. He's such a monumental figure. So yeah. Next, I also have a full review of this on my channel, but it's They Were Her Property, White Women as Slave Owners in the American South by Stephanie E. Jones Rogers. This book talks about how white women they weren't sitting by just watching stuff happen idly. They were gifted slaves from a young age. They were active in the slave trade. They were active in being slave owners. They weren't just innocent bystanders who were just there while their husband was doing all this stuff. This shows their role. I appreciated this. I remember reading this on a road trip that we took cross country and was going back home. And I read this and it was so, it's like you know it, like I knew it, but to read it on a page and just think about just, again, how certain stuff is omitted from the history that's taught just because it's it's better that way. Like, they don't want you to think about it like that. Like, so many times, white women who are married to these plantation owners, they're not seen as being the ones going to the auctions, or they're not seen as actively abusing the people that were on their plantations, or they're not seen as doing XYZ. They're almost like, oh, my husband does this. Well, no, that's not the case. So that was a good read as well. This will also make you mad. All of these will. And that's it, y'all. I ain't done because I'm done for this video. But I also am reading Black AF History next, which was gifted to me by Elaine. Hey girl, thank you. I'm reading that next. So I'm not done reading nonfiction Black history. But that's it for this video because that's where I'm at now. So I'm gonna give y'all a final look. I highly recommend every last one of these. I hope y'all can see. Every last one of them. Every last one of them. They will make you mad. They will make you rejoice when you feel like there's vindication. They'll make you reminisce, like when trees testify about your childhood. They'll make you see things from other perspectives, broaden your perspectives and horizons, like so much. I literally love reading about Black history. And I don't get personally, I don't get this, but I see it in online groups where some people don't want to read about trauma related things. Some people don't want to read about Black history, American history, Caribbean history, Native history. Some people don't want to, like, what they call rehash the past and read things that make them frustrated, mad, sad, annoyed, hurt. And that's their right. That's their right. Some people don't want to read enslaved narratives at all. They don't want to read about slavery, slave owners, the history, America, the founding fathers. They don't want to read that. And that's their right. But me, I'm gonna read it. So if you gonna read it, if you gonna read it, then read some of these. I would love to hear if you read any of these. I'd love to hear your thoughts. And if you have other recommendations, I got a ton of them and I'm making my way through them. And, I've always loved to just learn more, just about, and I know I'm gonna go through the range of emotions, but for me, it's important for me to read stuff like that. So that's it, y'all, for this video. I appreciate y'all being here. Like I said, leave me some recommendations if you have some in the comments, and I'm gonna see y'all on the next one.
Pages turning soft as silk, stories flowing like warm milk. A journey starts with it.